Hi, my name is Dr. Azami. I teach Geosystem, and this project is an alternative assessment project. It's basically put the concepts in a form a student they can visualize, and hopefully visualization is going to help them to learn the concept, retain and recall the concept. We are having the seafloor here, and these are different part of ocean seafloor. What we do, we have the oceanography unit. We use PowerPoint presentation. My team teacher, Miss Megan Flynn, is usually doing the PowerPoint presentation in the class, and I do one-on-one support in the class.
All right, so we have here various activities to help students process and store critical vocabulary. One of the key things is we are telling kids these words, but we're not necessarily giving them ways to internalize, build associative memory paths, and this helps them with that. The first activity can be scaled across all grade levels, and this is probably the most useful. I don't know if I'm not going to hold this up to the camera, I guess, but you essentially get the class to create a set of trifolds, brochures for each of the words. In this particular activity, I'm focusing on the verbs, which seem to be one of the most important. Well, I'm sorry, one of the most important things. But you give them, they're going to essentially create trifolds like this, and that maps out here. They've got a word. They're going to create pictures. They're going to create questions using. They're going to have answers to go along with the questions. They're going to have their own free space to do something with the word. Synonyms. So what you're doing is, and you might even build a trifold board, so that, you know, if somebody says, well, I'm not really sure I understand what infer means, go pull, yeah, the trifold. Now, they're going to get beaten up over time. You know, you can recreate them or make copies of them. I don't know. I haven't, that's where it doesn't work as well. But what else was I going to say? Anyway, yeah, that's teaching critical verbs. This activity right here, the middle one here, is inference. Inference is one of the biggest issues that we have, and this is almost cross-curricular in that you'll ask the kids, well, what do you infer from this? And they're like, infer what? What? If you're reading between the lines, what is being said or being implied that's not necessarily directly said? And again, crickets, they're still not getting it. And so what you do is like, all right, look, I've got a really short story here. I need 2 volunteers to read it. And they go, okay. And so I throw it out here, and I say, one of you start with the first line, the other start with the second line, and go. And what they will do is they'll go through, and as they get into it, they begin to realize that there is, in fact, a story here. And then they start reading it a certain way, with a certain tone, and then it gets to the end, and they go, oh, wow, that was, like, really cool. There is a story there. It's like, well, what happened? I won't reveal, I won't spoil, but they'll say one dude and the other dude and this happened and, you know, this person got killed or whatever. It's like, well, there's nothing in here that says killed. There's nothing in here that says murdered. How did you get that? Oh, I just saw it in my head after I read the words. That's inference. I said, why did you read this one as if it was a question? And they go, well, because there's a question mark at the end of it. That's inference. You knew because it was a question mark, you should read it. I said, that sounds really basic and simple. And I'll say, well, you know, this is a story, but what's happening? Well, the 2 people are having a conversation. Well, how do you know it's a conversation? Well, there's quotation marks. And they begin to realize, oh, so I know these things, even though they're obvious, but I don't think about them, but they're right there in my face. Kids love this. And there's a written extension activity I won't bore you with. And then this last one's more geared towards, again, advanced academics, AP. I mean, any of these activities can be adapted, and this is the famous book that we're drawing our 50 words from, in case you haven't seen that. Simile and metaphor, we ask the kids, and they always go, it's a comparison involving like or as. Okay, good. Can you give me a simile? Yeah, he's as big as a house. Okay. How about a metaphor? He's a big house. And they're like, okay, and then I said, all right. What I've done is I found 2 poems that is in fact, it's called A Simile for Her Smile, a little bit of wordplay there, that is in fact an extended simile. and a poem of metaphors. It's nothing but metaphors, and it has a central metaphor. And there's also a hidden metaphor in there that they've got to figure out. And what this does is, again, it builds another associative memory path for them for simile and metaphor beyond the mechanical definitions that we keep throwing at them.
So here we are scaffolding the Cornell Notes. Typically, the Cornell Notes, students take the notes and then they turn it into questions and then summarize it. Because our still learning English, this is a level 2, very at the beginning English. We give them the question in the PowerPoints, and then teaching them to determine what's important on this. What do I really need to write down? So I'm not copying every word for word. Once they've done that, then they can summarize the importance of the big idea here. For advanced students, we could give them an article. We'll turn the question or turn the heading into a question. They summarize that paragraph answering that question. Then when they're finished with the article, they have their notes, they can summarize the entire article based on those notes. For the higher level students who are going into English and notes that I want them to keep for a long time, such as the process writing, I give them foldables. So here is how to write a hook. And so these are different ways they can write a hook. They do some practice sets over here, but this is something that they can keep with them. So the next time they write an essay and they ask me, how do I write a hook? Here you have it. Or hopefully they'll keep it at English 10, English 11.
This is sentence frames. This is one of the things we do at the beginning of class when we're doing our warm-ups or having the kids respond to an essential question. They use academic vocabulary. These are the kinds of words that they'll see in every single subject across the board, whether it's math, history, English. And so we ask them to incorporate those words in sentence frames. We give them the frame to help get them started. And it helps them to not only write a full sentence, but sometimes also to get started writing a paragraph.
Well, AVID is basically a college readiness program. It's for getting your organizational skills ready to get you prepared for college in the note-taking program. Basically just in a high school, getting you ready to see a brief look at how college looks like. Go ahead.
AVID is targeted towards like smarter kids in high school, but they don't have the support at home or at school that they would need. And for some of the kids that lack the support in school and lack organizational skills. So AVID is like a good structural program that'll help them in school and help them be better students overall.
So AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination, which is another way of saying that a student can be determined to strive for success in college or just in high school or anywhere else. They get taught to take good notes, they get taught to summarize things at a lower pace or a faster pace, whichever pace works best for them. And at the end of the day, they'll get home learning things more fluently. They'll know how to take tests more eligibly, and they'll also have better study skills that they can't get after school or before school, so why not take it during school as I have a class.
So AVID is my personal support system, but also it's a big family. We all help each other when it comes to classes, and we all learn together. Like all four of us today, we're friends, and we hang out, you know, but we also help each other in classes when it comes down to it, because we're all taking the same classes and we're all trying to improve ourselves, and we use the knowledge of others. So that's how
I'm talking about different vocabulary strategies, and this book that we have here is the book that the 50 words that you see in the hallway were based off of. This book is called Vocab Rehab, and it has some great graphic organizers in it that you can use. This book has graphic organizers. It's called Tools for Teaching Academic Vocabulary, and it has examples of graphic organizers and and it's then samples of how the graphic organizers are used. And then also if you go to staff tools, if you click on the desktop and staff tools, then you see Ed Ellis Makes Sense Strategies, and there are a ton of graphic organizers there, and they're broken down by vocabulary strategies, reading strategies, writing strategies, and then by content strategies as well.
These are my 3 activities that I wanted to share with my colleagues. They're all project-based assessments. We have a compare and contrast essay where they use a graphic organizer and they use a movie to explain 2 different cultures in the United States. I also have a cookbook where they make connections from when they start doing the cookbook to where they write those recipes, and then they report to their students and also give samples to them. And then my last one, it's a newscast show that I asked them to do a little video where they're reporting a news that they found online. And so everybody has to play a role, everybody has to do the same thing that we're doing right now, and report and ask questions and tell me what happened in that news. And so it's a really good way to connect curating events with what they're doing in class.
So this is my photography version of a Jigsaw strategy. What pretty much is happening, the students are pre-assessed by interest. They have to start off ranking images from what they feel like is most interesting to least interesting. From there, I group them into expert activities based on that pre-assessment. So in class, they'll start off in their home group, and then they'll break off, get up, move to a different table to their expert group. And within that expert group, they'll spend time researching only one specific photographer and their body of work. So I have some of the images up on the board that they got to choose from. I'll maybe post some pre-found articles for them. They're also given guiding questions to make sure that they're actually exploring the work in depth. When that allowed time is up for them to actually research and become experts, they'll go back to their home groups, and from there they'll report back to their home group, like, this is the photographer I learned about today, this is what's interesting, this is what's working, and they'll take turns reporting back, sharing extra images, all that good stuff, and then they'll do an exit ticket with their home group and kind of reflecting on what they learned today from their peers. So yeah, it's a great way to get them moving up, talking with different people in the classroom, bonding over a common image, and then it also helps inspire their own work for their own light and shadow photography.
This is how we teach reading in band, okay? We have music is cut up into measures, right? So as kids are reading the music, they have to jump to the next measure on the 3rd count of the previous measure. And then your eye has to jump down to the next line. And kids have a hard time going from this bar to that bar. And so we work this slowly, and then all of a sudden we start working faster and faster.
We're doing process-oriented guided inquiry learning. It's shortened POGLE, which we think sounds like a medication. It's not. What POGLEs do is they take a very abstract concept, breaks it into something concrete that students can understand, and then walks them through a very scaffolded process to understand that concept, to interact with that concept, and internalize it, starting with the concrete and then turning to the abstract. It also makes them work in groups. They work in groups of 3 to 5 students. Everybody's got a role. It puts the onus on the students. It puts the ownership on the students. Everybody's got something to do. It makes your fast students slow down and explain their learning. It requires your slow students to understand and to ask questions to clarify their understanding. They can't get away with not knowing what they're doing. They have to be able to explain what they know. So it makes the whole group work together to reach a consensus of understanding. Truly gives you a vehicle to be that guide on the side that they talk about rather than a sage on the stage. Gives you a piece to do that with. Makes your life so much easier because you don't have to create it. It's done for you and lets you take those concepts and know that your kids are getting all the academic pieces that they need. Right now it's primarily for sciences and math, but it's a concept that's catching on, and they're starting to be written for other content areas as well.
This is Rock and Roll Playwriting for Theater 1. It's a freshman unit, and every year we do this unit, but because this year we were working on wicker strategies, I really wanted to stress the collaboration in my class, and so my idea was to, we split the students up in groups of 5, and they write a one-act musical, 15 minutes long, based off of a rock and roll song. And what I did different this year is that I had each of the students handwrite the script all together, and that really got all of the students engaged rather than one person on a computer and doing the work for everybody. And also I made them turn in their work every day so that one student couldn't go home and do the work for everybody. Much better process, and the scripts that I received were a lot better, well written, and much more thoughtful because 5 people were working on it. So the outcome is, like I said, a 15-minute musical that they stage. They stage the song, the rock and roll song. They costume it. They use props. It's the whole shebang. So we just finished with the writing part, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the final outcome. Thank you.
Well, this is some examples of what the ESOL department is doing with vocabulary development that can be adapted to any department. So over here we have some examples of using ways to kind of have the vocabulary be more accessible to the kids. So we've incorporated visuals, and we have graphic organizers based on the Freyer model, which we've modified it to include things like making a connection and adding an illustration, because we think for our kids making that connection is so important, and having the visuals. In the middle here, we're talking about using vocabulary, so we have them restating SOL test questions in their own words, because if they can understand the question, half the battle. And using sentence frames, which we have been using at every level, even with our newcomers, to get them to be able to talk about books and literature in English. And then over here we have our academic vocabulary, and it's an example of an activity where we had them do a scavenger hunt using the words in the hallway. So I think that's really what we have for today.
This is an activity I do with my level 2 Spanish students. When we're working on our commands, there's 3 parts to the activity. The first part is the developing and organizing, working with giving commands, giving instructions, like driving directions. The group, they're divided into groups of 4 or 5 students. They have to come up with a plan. They pick a destination in school where they want to write instructions. It can be the rock, it can be the stadium, it can be as far as the gym, no further than that. And then they work together to write a certain number of steps. 8 commands, leave the classroom, go right, go down the stairs, continue straight so you get to the end of the hallway, and then after that turn left, where are you? And the second part is we're going to exchange papers within the groups, and they have to follow the instructions, hoping the instructions were written correctly. So they have 15 minutes, whether they get to their destination in 15 minutes or not, they have to be back in the classroom. It's okay if they don't get to the destination. That could be a combination of 2 reasons. Maybe they didn't understand the instructions in Spanish correctly, or they weren't written correctly. Maybe the first group wrote turn left instead of turn right, and here they are at a wall, and that's okay. And the third part is they have 2 to 3 minutes. It's an informal presentation as to where they went, how they got there, maybe did they get to the correct place. So we'll have, they're not graded on arriving at the destination, but rather are their commands formed correctly. We're reinforcing the past tense in the presentation, so are they able to talk about what they just did. And then the hesitation initially in letting them go around the school unsupervised, for 15 minutes. I was a little bit hesitant to do that. However, they have a goal. Their goal is to find a destination. They have a time limit of 15 minutes. And there's a prize for being the first one back. So they're working together, and that kind of are the incentives to do what you're supposed to. And it worked out pretty well. So
we are here representing the math department for being awesome at putting together a trifold board. So our goal as a department has been to use the 50 critical academic words in our objective statements or our essential questions that we utilize often on Cornell Notes. So kids not only see those words in kind of a math context and what they're supposed to be learning and doing that day, but then at the end of the class they're supposed to be summarizing their progress and their work, incorporating that word again. So even though math is not usually heavy on the words and the vocabulary and the literacy, we've been finding ways to get them to do math work by, using words that normally wouldn't have been in a math problem. So part of our example today was having other departments use sentence strips to utilize the words in ways that their classes could benefit from those objective statements. So we've got some volunteers here that are doing that today as well.
Hi, I'm Senora Veltman. I teach in the World Languages Department, and our topic is draw what you hear with some total physical response thrown in. Basically, our children don't really listen to us past the first few sentences, and they fail to follow directions. So this is a way for them to sequence and draw and listen to everything and comprehend it. So you take a text, usually no longer than what you see here, which is a page that has some kind of a sequence of events. You read it once, they only listen, then they freak out, and you say no, you get 2 more times. You read it a second time, they may jot down some shorthand notes. You read it a 3rd time, and then they have to start drawing the sequence of events as they hear it. For lower levels or children, in self-contained classes or ESOL and its brand new vocabulary, when the teacher reads it the first time, you can act out and stress certain vocabulary words so they understand what it means. Second time through, make them act it out with you. 3rd time, they can draw. And then, you can always decide on the class and how it's going, whether you want to read it more than 3 times. So this is basically a way for them to sequence and pay attention through an entire speech by the teacher.
This is a sorting activity. We went, are you on this too? Okay. We had the idea that we wanted to break the course of AP US History into 3 sections in which each of the 3 team members would ultimately identify the 25 most critical terms in that one section. Okay? Now, when we did this the first time, in my particular section, I was over 50, and I was streamlining it while I was doing it the first time. So I ultimately had to cut this to 25, which I did in this particular section, and then you probably can't see it there, but this ended up being our final 75. So we then realized that it was important that we all had different ideas as to how to use this in activities, because we're not computers. We have different ideas that are successful. All right. So one teacher wanted to take any group of alphabetized 10 in groups and have the kids try to put them in chronological order. Another wanted to take a particular event and then make inferences of a comparable event at another time period, okay? And then yet another teacher just wanted them to connect that one event with other things that were going on in that time period. And that was basically it. And there's other ways, but those were the 3 that we listed.
We are the Russell Hall team. We are a group of English teachers and special ed teachers supporting students during Wolverine time, specifically the West Potomac Writing Center and the West Potomac Reading Center. Students can come any Wolverine time for support in reading and writing. And specifically, this is a strategy that we created last year. We had students create videos to teach different aspects of persuasive writing, which is an essential element for the Writing SOL every March. The students made videos that they then linked to QR codes so that they can access these videos whenever they want by clicking on the QR codes. And teachers that learn how to create the codes, which is really simple, can make videos or have those codes linked to anything relevant to their content area. Yeah.
Okay. Another big aspect of Russell Hall is having the Reading Center and Writing Center open to students. So they could come by and set appointments anytime. And sit with a tutor and work on a piece of writing. We're also open during lunches this year. And it's a good kind of space for them to be able to come and get help in reading and writing.
The Reading Center we opened this year for the first time. We were one of only 3 in Fairfax County. And we are set up to help kids not just to do their assignments, but to also just come and enjoy reading on their own and to get help with any reading that they don't understand. They can also come to make up assignments if they were absent. So it's kind of cool. We have bean bags and rocker chairs, and it's been fun.
And finally, we do SOL remediation, SOL study group for the reading and writing SOLs, and we've been very successful so far this year. Had a lot of kids show up.
Pass rate, good pass
yeah,
rate.
we had very good pass rates for the last writing SOLs. So we were really excited. We have lots of kids coming, lots of kids enjoying, lots of kids using Russell Hall.
And we got a Work Keys Award.
Oh, yes, and Work Keys. We did have Work Keys pass rates. So send your kids to Russell Hall.